Why pay regular price when you can save money on every purchase with WagerBucks at both WagerTalk and Sports Memo? WagerBucks are now eligible for use on not just daily, 3-day, and 7-day passes, but all long-term and seasonal packages up to 1 full year. There are tons of options available for every budget and size of bettor, from as low as $90 gets $100, all the way up to $3,500 gets you $5,000. Save every day on every pick you buy with WagerBucks.
October! Always try to do a Prez impersonation when I'm guest hosting it. It is October 1st, Friday, October 1st. I am Steve Merrill, filling in for the Prez here for the next few days on WagerTalk Today. And we are in the month of October, Teddy covers. And I don't want to understate it. This is one of the best betting months in the history of Octobers, as we have 5 full college and pro football weekends starting tomorrow and Sunday. We've got the NBA starting a little bit earlier than normal. We've got baseball going a little bit longer than normal, so you're going to get a full month of Major League Baseball playoffs, 5 full weeks of college and pro football, and some NBA along the way. And don't forget about golf, soccer, NASCAR as well. And I bring it up because you can still get the whole month of October for less than half price right now at WagerTalk.com. With that said, we got a great show today. Teddy Covers is my co-host, as always, WagerTalk.com. We're going to start off with Rob Veno as well from WagerTalk. Rob's going to cover some football action for us, and we might get a big picture thoughts from him at the end as well. And, of course, we got a big game breakdown. And, Teddy, I'm interested about this big game breakdown because Clemson is a team you're going to be talking about, Boston College Clemson, and I just don't know what to do with these Clemson Tigers. 2 losses already. Curious to see your take if you think they break out this week. And then after that, we've also got Tony Mejia from WagerTalk.com. Tony's going to look at tonight's Friday night football game, a big one in the Big Ten between Iowa and Maryland. So we have some Friday night football action for you. Also, an even bigger game Saturday between Ole Miss and Alabama. Also, Chiefs and Eagles on Sunday. But Teddy Covers, before we get to all that action, what did you learn last night on Thursday?
Well, we want to talk about who Rob's going to talk about. Rob's going to talk about Northwestern, Nebraska, Southern Miss, and Rice. And I changed my big game breakdown. I was going to talk about Clemson. I realized we needed more NFL on this show. So I'm going to talk about the Broncos and the Ravens NFL action for Sunday. When it comes to what did bettors learn last night, I've been harping, and I'm going to always harp. Every half point matters. You know what else matters? Every half pass matters. Joe Burrow last night, we did a free play in the big game breakdown talking about Burrow under 32.5 pass attempts, lands 32. Every half pass matters. And frankly, I have no idea what that line closed at. I don't know if it was varied from book to book. I locked in at 32.5. That was my number. Of course, great drama because it wasn't like the Bengals were going to pass again necessarily. They came out throwing, but at the end of the game, Burrow's at 31. They're at the edge of field goal range. It looks like run a couple of times, call your timeouts, and kick the field goal. Instead, they get a holding penalty, and they have to throw again. Luckily, it was a big play completion that set them up in field goal range. Burrow finishes at 32. And again, doesn't matter. We're talking about half points, half wins, half pass attempts. They all matter. And that's why we talk about shopping around for the best of the numbers. Same story with the total last night. Total bounced between 45 and 46, lands 45. And most people that had the under were able to cash in that. But if you didn't shop around, you might end up with a push there. And of course, we have to talk about the Canes missing the kick last night against Virginia because why did they play for the kick? In the NFL, you can do that. The kickers are good enough. In college, you give a college kid 15 minutes to think about how he's got to kick the game winner. Inside 40 doesn't matter. That was a surprising decision for me. But maybe the most important thing that I learned last night, when you talk about cultural changes, Steve Merrill, I remember, I'm old enough to remember when Snoop and Dre first came out, okay? And these guys were not going to host a Super Bowl. They're not going to be the halftime entertainment for the Super Bowl. They were like, they were the youth of today, and there's nothing but trouble with Snoop and Dre. They're freaking doing the halftime show of the Super Bowl. Talk about how our culture has changed over the last 30 years. 30 years ago, those guys are outliers. They're rebels. Now, the Super Bowl halftime. What about you, Steve? What did you learn last night?
Yeah, I'll definitely get to the Super Bowl halftime in a moment. I'm glad you brought that up. Just quickly on that NFL game, I actually released my first NFL teaser this season at WagerTalk.com, and I used the Bengals in that teaser, so it worked out perfectly. You know, that was a 7.5-point favorite, got them down, and we talk about covering the key numbers of 3 and 7. Textbook example right there, as you said, Teddy. Of course, you have to tie it up with the second game. I do have a second game for Sunday, my top teaser plays. So if someone takes advantage of that October special we talked about, you'd still see my top teaser for Sunday, so you haven't missed out. But to the Super Bowl stuff, I'm glad they're doing this because I think in recent years, you know, last year was The Weeknd. I actually recognized more songs as it was happening, but going in, I can only name like one. And I told people last year, I was like, they got to get back to doing, here's my rule of thumb. The Super Bowl halftime show has to cover at least 2 generations of music fans. And The Weeknd didn't do that. You know, it was only modern new people. So I think this is great. You've got 2 generations of fans. So yes, they wouldn't have qualified in the 90s because only young people knew them. But now we know them, and the newer generation knows Ice Cube and Dre still. I think this is where they have to go. I got to ask you this, though, Teddy. Who was the first Super Bowl halftime show ever back in 1967 when you were sitting on the one side of the stadium at the Rose Bowl with your dad, in which they filled to make it look full for the TV cameras? Who was the first halftime show? You know, Rob Veno. Let's bring Rob on as we talk about this, actually, because Rob's son is a professional musician. So do either of you know, Rob or Teddy, who the first halftime show was? I had to pull it up, but I kind of knew in general who it was.
I'm going to guess, and I would say like maybe the USC marching band.
Good guess. Yeah, and in fact, I was talking to someone about this yesterday,
and
I said Southern or Grambling marching band or a high school band. And I'm looking now, it was the Grambling State University marching band and the University of Arizona Symphonic Marching Band, which I did not know. But yeah, Grambling was the first 2 Super Bowls. How do you like that, guys? You could win some bar bets with that one. And it just shows how big the game has become. Rob, I got to get your take on it too, though, because you've got a huge music background in your family. Halftime show. You probably watch it more than many handicappers, I would guess.
I usually get up and let my wife watch it. She's more apt to watch it than I am. But in this case, Steve, when you said 2 generations, you're exactly right. I mean, I happen to have 2 sons, 28 and will be 25, who know who Dre and Snoop and not so much Mary J. Blige. I don't think they were younger then. They might not remember so much because Dre and Snoop are such big entities right now. Right, they're in everything, not only music, but they're in TV, they're in movies, they're everywhere. So they know them more. Eminem, of course, covers 2 generations. We remember when Eminem first came out, right? I mean, Teddy, that's late 90s, and Eminem was, oh dear Lord, Run for the Hills. So all of this stuff, I mean, at the time, Dre and not Snoop, but Dre with NWA and the police riots and everything that were going on. So yes, they had no chance, Teddy, to answer your original question. They had 0 chance of ever being Super Bowl halftime. But now, they're so mainstream. They're so mainstream now. And the fact that I know the songs, and my son also does, it does cover the 2 generation rule, Steve. So we'll see. In this household, we'll watch it. I guarantee we'll watch this one to see how this goes. Mary J. Blige, I'm a fan of. She's pretty cool too.
So Teddy, are you happy? Are you happy that this is the halftime show? I know you don't stick around for it.
Is this going to make you stick what around, the halftime Teddy? Show is? I'm just going to watch it. Of a cultural shift in our country, you know, in the U.S. Major. This to me is the epitome of this is now like, the culture has shifted. Our generation is now running things. And again, I mean, these guys were outlaws. You know, there's not a chance. You know, the mainstream America is like, heavens to Betsy, listen to these lyrics, you know. And now they're you know, halftime of the Super Bowl. So enough with this. Let's get into some football.
Hey, Teddy, I just want to, it just came to me. Let me add one thing just to put into context what you're saying. These guys came into prominence in around 1991. The 1991 Super Bowl actually was the year of the Gulf War where Whitney Houston sang the national anthem, which has become iconic.
New Kids on the Block was a halftime show, Rob.
New Kids on the Block, right? But just for the cultural shift that Teddy's talking about, that cultural shift, you go from extremely patriotic beginning to that Super Bowl, and where the rap music the hip hop wouldn't have been accepted to now. So it putting it into context, that's who sang to start off the Super Bowl in 1991.
Yeah, and he's exactly right, Teddy, because if you look, I'm looking at the chart here, Grambling State and Southern University march, even in Super Bowl 24, the Southern University marching band was there. It wasn't until Super Bowl 25 that New Kids on the Block did it. It's really the first big group when I'm looking at the list here. So this is interesting. It's only been half the Super Bowls. And I started watching Super Bowls around Super Bowl 16, Super Bowl 15. So, in our lifetime, guys, we've seen a change in the halftime show, and we're seeing it again here. It's for the good. And Teddy Covers is counting down the moments that he gets to watch his first halftime show this February 7th. It's a late February 7th kickoff. Rob, let's get to some college football, man. You're on the best damn college football show on Wednesday. You're going to be filling in with Tony Mejia. I'll be back in a couple of weeks to do the Friday show, hopefully. You and Tony will be on at 4 o'clock Eastern today, live here on WagerTalk TV with the great Joe Ranieri and the legend Dave Koken, talking some college football, breaking the games down. But first, let's look at some games this weekend here. You're going to get to a total here, but let's start with your side selection. I love totals in college football. I'm looking forward to talking about that Rice game here. But let's first talk about the Northwestern-Nebraska game that Teddy mentioned you're going to talk about here. Big Ten battle. Nebraska, they hung tight with Oklahoma a few weeks ago. Then Oklahoma also didn't score much last week. So maybe Nebraska's defense isn't as great as we thought after slowing down the Sooners. Northwestern, what's your take on this game? Northwestern, obviously, a team that's been a little bit better in recent years, but I still think not quite at the caliber of Nebraska and these other teams in the Big Ten.
Yeah, first off, let me say that when I made this bet for myself, Nebraska minus 11 points, it's now up to 11.5. I think there's even some 12s out there. The thought that ran through my head after I bet Nebraska was, you know what? You are the true definition of a gambler, because Teddy, I'll take your rebuttal right now and cut it out, because I remember using Nebraska last year on this show. You rebutted. You'll have the same questions this year. It'll be concerns about Nebraska, Teddy. Every concern in your rebuttal, yes, yes, and yes, if it's about fading Nebraska. But let me tell you why I'm going to bang my head against the brick wall with a team that can look real good and did so last year, but inevitably tends to destroy itself, whether it's with self-inflicted penalties, whether it's with drop passes, whether it's with Adrian Martinez screwballing up. Still, I'm going to take myself, and I've already taken myself to that side. I think their run defense and the Northwestern run defense are the real keys, the line of scrimmage in this game. For Nebraska, their run defense has been really, really good. And it kind of negates the only thing Northwestern can do at this point in time is run the football. If you take their running back, Evan Hull, for Northwestern, and you look at the Ohio U and Indiana State games, which, by the way, guys, in my power ratings, plus minus differential off of the season opener, Ohio U ranks second to last. They've lost 9 points off of their season opening power rating. So there's two teams, Ohio U sinking like a lead balloon, and Indiana State, an FCS team that's very, very middle of the road. Evan Hull runs for 442 yards against those two teams. Against the two other teams they played, Michigan State and Duke, he only ran for 136, 68 a game. Their offensive line, and let's go back to the offseason where Northwestern was one of the most decimated teams personnel-wise in the country. We're talking awful lot right now about super seniors and guys that came back because they were allowed to off the COVID year. Northwestern wasn't one of those. They returned nobody, basically. So it's a total rebuild there, quarterback-wise, offensive line-wise, wide receiver-wise, every which way for Northwestern offensively. It's been a rebuild. Shows up in the running numbers. Nebraska's been good against the run. And I think that's where they thrive, is in their front seven. So I think they'll make Northwestern one-dimensional. They're to their third quarterback right now, Ryan Helinski, South Carolina transfer. They started with Hunter Johnson, the five-star from Clemson, who hasn't been any good in 2 years. They wound up with Marty Andrew filling in, and now they're at Ryan Helinski. So let's say that Nebraska, in my mind at least, takes away the running game and kind of leaves Northwestern stranded on offense. Last two games, they've only allowed 23 points to Oklahoma and Michigan State. Real good numbers there. I think when you weed out that subpar competition, because you may come back at me and say, Rob, Nebraska's best games were against Buffalo, Fordham. There's one more in there where they didn't play, where they overwhelmed the opponent. Actually, it was Illinois, guys. And Illinois, I think we could consider, at least they're a Big Ten team. But in those games, they held Michigan State to a season low 254 yards last week. That game went overtime in East Lansing with Mel Tucker begging the fans to come out, and Michigan State off to such a good start. They only got 2.4 a carry. This is a Michigan State team that ran for 326 on Northwestern. there's your common opponent comparison. They both played Michigan State. Nebraska did it much better than Northwestern did. I think in the end, it's real easy. Nebraska focuses on Evan Hull. They take him out of the game. I think the Nebraska ground game finds far more success against this team, which has allowed 534 rushing yards to Michigan State and Duke. Northwestern figures to have difficulties with Adrian Martinez. Every week he's breaking off a big run. Nebraska's back home. I think the concern, guys, Nebraska hasn't protected the quarterback this year. 18 sacks allowed. But how about this? Northwestern's faced 106 pass attempts. They've only gotten to the quarterback 5 times. That includes Ohio, U, and Indiana State. So give me Nebraska minus the points. I think it's about time they show up with a big win. I'll try it.
So this is my question for you, Rob Veno, and it's real simple. All right. The last 10 years, these two teams have played every year. And in exactly one of those meetings, has Nebraska won by enough to cover this point spread? So it's happened, one time in 10 years. Every other meeting has either been competitive or Northwestern has won straight up. Is this year's Nebraska and this year's Northwestern, does it merit this type of point spread? Is given the series history, is Northwestern that far down and or Nebraska that far up compared to what we've seen these teams do in recent seasons?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't use the Nebraska that far up, although I think they're progressing. But I would use the Northwestern that far down, Teddy. I failed to mention when I said Ohio U had lost the second most points off of their season opening power rating, at least numbers that I keep. Northwestern is tied for 6th worst. They've lost a bunch off of theirs as well. And again, Pat Fitzgerald's a great head coach. You never want to sell him short, but I just don't know that he has the goods to mend the fence this year. He's been very good at taking teams off of slow starts and getting them to the finish line with better records. But in watching them a couple of times, I just don't know. This team's poor in areas where he usually has them good. Rush offense, rush defense, that type of thing. Just not good by Northwestern standards this year. So, again, I'm betting into something that maybe you shouldn't be betting into. Pretty good definition of a gambler. I'm taking a gamble here.
Rob Veno, WagerTalk.com. And I told Rob, I go, do you want to do a third game? He's like, no, I've got a couple novels on these first 2 games. He wasn't lying. He had some notes on the Nebraska Northwestern game. We're going to look at a total, though, Rob. I am anxious to hear your thoughts on this one because college football totals, I think, are a great money-making opportunity. We talk about the generation gap. You and I have been doing this, and along with Teddy, since the 90s. I remember back when we started in the 90s, you couldn't even find a total on any college football game. And then late 90s, they started posting them on a couple of maybe the top 25 matchups like Alabama, Mississippi. We're going to talk about Tony Mejia in a little bit. But now not only can you get totals on every game, you get first half totals, team totals, 1AA FCS totals. And obviously not all these numbers are sharp. So you found a game you want to talk about here with Rice and Southern Miss. Not exactly a high profile game. So I'm very anxious to hear your breakdown on this total because I feel you have probably found some value with this one. And, Southern Miss has been really bad offensively, 17 points a game, struggle to throw the ball. But now they're facing a really bad defense in Rice. Do you think they can get the ball moving finally?
Yeah, and Teddy, I'll go out on a limb trying to be proactive. You remember a couple of weeks ago when I came on, we had Duke Northwestern over, right? And that was not really, that was something like, what the hell is he talking about Duke and Northwestern for? But Duke has since proven to be what we talked about that day. And Northwestern has actually proven to be what we talked about that day. Game went way over. For Rice, there's been a quarterback change. Remember, this is that's on the other side, Southern Miss. But for Rice, Jack Constantine is your new quarterback. He's an FCS transfer out of Weber State. It probably by necessity, guys, because Luke McCaffrey and Wiley Green, the 2 returnees, McCaffrey was a transfer in, Green the returnee, but they've been abysmal to start the season. They bring in Constantine in relief 2 games ago, and then they let him start last week against Texas Southern. He puts up great numbers. Again, it's Texas Southern. We want to take it with somewhat of a grain of salt, but I think there's a little air of confidence in the Rice offense. Suddenly played a weak opponent, moved the football. He goes 30 of 38, 79% completions last week does Constantine against Texas Southern. I think McCaffrey and Wiley Green, if you get inside their heads, they're like, well, what the heck? We had to play against Texas and Arkansas, and this guy gets Texas Southern. We get benched, and he gets the job. but I think that it's probably a good switch for this team. Constantine, a graduate senior transfer through the portal, so he's got a lot of experience. Weber State, a real good FCS team. For Southern Miss, the quarterback situation has landed on Ty Keys, a true freshman. Here's where I wanted to go with that. Their head coach, first year, Will Hall, labeled as one of the top young offensive coordinators in college football, was at Tulane last year, trying to bring this offense along. Keys struggled in his first game. They threw him out there against Troy State, 16 of 27, 151. Then they throw him out there again against Alabama last week. And for what it's worth, guys, to go 11 of 24 with 2 TDs and only 1 interception against Alabama is not a bad performance on the road with this team. So he's a dual threat guy. I think he's got his feet wet now. He gets to play Rice, as you mentioned, Steve, a far inferior defense to what Alabama is. So pretty much a step down in class for him and this offense in this game. I think Will Hall will get them rolling. Here's the keys for me. You have to ask yourself, how much is an upgrade having Jack Constantine at quarterback for Rice? I think it's a huge upgrade. Luke McCaffrey has proven to be zero, got run out of Nebraska, couldn't start at Rice. So obviously he's not any good. Wiley Green hasn't been any good. And can the USM offense succeed against this miserable Rice defense, which has really been torched for the most part this year? I think they can. When you're betting totals, Teddy, you talked about half points being important. Numbers are always important. I mean, teams are involved in this game, and I talk a lot about teams, but we're always betting numbers. This one's cheap, 45 points. You're asking these two teams to go out there and score 23 aside. 2 bad defenses, 2 offenses that are taking major step down in class. Nobody else is going to look at this game, but I think I can be proactive here because I think I see some things. I'm going to throw a real quick trend for halftime bettors out there. If you want to fade Southern Miss first half this year, you're 4-0. If you want to fade Rice second half this year, you're 4-0. So maybe you could be that simple and just fade Southern Miss first half, pick up your money, run back, bet it against Rice second half, pick up more money, and win twice. But I'm going to try over 45, Rice and Southern Miss. I think this one will be higher scoring than that.
So Rice has played one competitively lined game this year, one game with a single-digit point spread, and they scored 7 points in that contest. That came against Houston. USM has played, Southern Miss has played a couple of competitively lined games versus Troy and versus South Alabama, and they scored 9 and 7 in those ball games. So we've seen these teams play, relatively close to them competition, and neither squad has been able to do anything offensively in those ball games. Do you think the QB switches and the downgrade in defensive class here is enough? Obviously you do, to get this one up and over the total. But how much is 45 the piece of the equation? If this was 48, would you still be looking at it?
Maybe not, Teddy, because 47 and 48 are key numbers. I mean, 27-21 final, I win here, I lose on 48. 27-20, I win here, I lose on 47. So I think that the number, as I mentioned earlier, the number's got a lot to do with it. Really does. I think these teams might get high 40s into the low 50s. So just taking advantage of a cheap number, trying to read into what's been going on there with the switches and think they're for the best. And again, the step down in class defensively that both these offenses will face. To me, it all adds up to over 45 points.
Rob Veno, WagerTalk.com. And, Rob, as bad as the Rice offense has been this year, just 18 points a game, they're still 4-0 to the over. In all 4 games, it just blows me away, 44 points allowed. So if you're right about an upgraded quarterback and offense, I mean, that's been the problem. They're still going over. So it is a low total. This Rice defense, guys, has given up almost 44 a game, which is basically the total. So there again, Teddy, to your point about this total being pretty low. Interesting one. And I looked at see what TV network was on because I'm sure people want to watch this game win. And I saw ESPN in the number. I was like, ESPN2, you got to be at ESPN3. So that makes more sense now.
But I got to say, Steve, I love it when our guests come on and give us a game that's not the highest profile game. Because, frankly, you can watch a lot of college football shows, and it's all this top 25 team, that top 25 team. And Rob Veno knows as well as anybody else, the way to make money in college is not necessarily betting on or against top 25 teams. So, Rob, anything you got to promote before we let you go?
Yeah, real quickly, Teddy, I'll promote. It's been a real good Major League Baseball run since the All-Star break, up 53% return on investment. And tonight in college football, 4% best bet up and available right now, WagerTalk.com.
Awesome, Rob. Great to see you. And once again, he'll be on the College Football Show live today at 4 o'clock Eastern with Tony Mejia, who's coming up here in a few moments, and Joe Ranieri right here on Dave Koken on Wager Talk TV. Best of luck this weekend, Rob Veno. And after the break here, 20 seconds, big game breakdown, NFL style, Broncos and Ravens from Teddy Covers. Stay with us.
Would you like to bet $20 and win $100 at BetMGM regardless of your wager's outcome and get $100 in free wager bucks? Just go to wt.buzz/MGM for more details and find out if you're eligible for this amazing offer.
It is time for today's big game breakdown. Let's do a little bit NFL Sunday action. West Coast variety. And this one looks like a really interesting game. The Denver Broncos and the Baltimore Ravens. Right now, looking at the Wager Talk live odds screen, I'm seeing basically a pick'em for this game. A couple of places I'm seeing Denver -1. Not sure where this line is going to move because there's also a couple of places where I'm seeing Baltimore -1. So we'll call it pick'em right here. Total sitting at 45. Before we get into the full breakdown, I do want to let you know about what's going on this weekend over at Wager Talk and Sports Memo. Look, I'm running good, guys. 70% all sports run over the last, 12 days now. The college football is profitable. The NFL is profitable to start the season, and the big tickets have been fantastic. An 80% run dating back to May. So you can get all my plays for the weekend locked and loaded right now over at Wager Talk and or sportsmemo.com. Vic Fangio came into this year 0-7 into September. Hadn't won a September game. Quote, I think we've got a good team. We've been pretty damn solid for 3 weeks, both offensively and defensively. We can only play who we play. Of course, all the talk about Denver is they haven't beaten anyone. Their 3 opponents, the Giants, the Jaguars, and the Jets, pretty awful. Combined 0-9. And they've beaten those teams by a combined 76-26 scores. The defense has been dynamite, and the offense has done enough. Again, last week, their opponent at 3.1 yards per play. That's good. Okay, so the question is, for Denver, against, Baltimore's battle-tested. We've seen that the first couple of weeks. And Denver isn't. So there's a knee-jerk reaction when this happens. The betting markets tend to look at the team that's battle-tested and say, oh, well, they're battle-tested, the other team isn't, therefore they're better. I'm not convinced that's the case. What's the upside for Denver? Playoffs, division title, Super Bowl. When you look at that roster is loaded. Both sides of the ball. I know they got a handful of injuries right now. They're a little banged up at wide receiver. A couple offensive linemen got dinged last week. But I see Denver with every bit as much as upside as Baltimore for what they can do come December or January. I see Denver playing with momentum. I see Denver at home. And I see a Ravens team that we've seen some cracks. Lamar Jackson, obviously not 100% this week. Their receiving core banged up. Their offensive line banged up. Yeah, Denver, pick 'em. That's the play for Sunday. And there's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Merrill.
Teddy Covers, WagerTalk.com, looking at a little NFL action. And by the way, if you want even more analysis on that game, be sure to check out Wager Talk TV as I broke it down with Carmine Bianco and Kelly Stewart on a NFL breakdown video. Of course, we cover almost all the NFL games, a ton of college football games as well on those little 5-6 minute videos right here on Wager Talk TV. And that is a big one on late Sunday afternoon. Ravens at the Broncos. And Teddy, I misspoke earlier because you thought about doing a college game instead of against the NFL. And you were talking about that Boston College Clemson game. I just want to quickly get your takes on Clemson. I went 3-1 a couple Saturdays ago, and the only game I lost was Clemson Georgia Tech. Didn't even come close. They were 4-touchdown favorite, only scored twice. There was a weather delay there. Maybe that threw them off a little bit. But obviously, that offense is struggling. Ui Ungalele. I practiced that all summer. I got so good at it. And obviously, there has been a drop-off without Trevor Lawrence and some other key players. What's your take overall on Clemson moving forward? I mean, do they have any chance with 2 losses to still get into the playoff picture?
No, they don't have any chance, but they can still compete for an ACC title. That being said, I mean, everyone's got a chance, but certainly it's a long uphill battle. But they still have their goals in terms of an ACC title that are still very much ahead of them, that they're capable of winning. And I think Dabo is capable of keeping them focused on that goal. You talked about the quarterback position. I don't think it's the quarterback's fault at all. I mean, again, you're going from, again, they've had Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence as the last two QBs there. There's going to be some, growing pains with a new quarterback, unquestionably. But Clemson's issues are far beyond the quarterback position. The biggest issue they have is the offensive line. The offensive line is not protecting the quarterback, and we saw it again. The Georgia Tech game, I watched it before the rain delay, okay? The offense didn't work. Georgia Tech was blowing them up at the line of scrimmage. And that could happen again this way. I mean, BC, they're not fast. Their defensive team speed is lacking. But at the line of scrimmage, they're capable of putting pressure on the line of scrimmage. I think the defensive front is the strength of that stop unit. So offensive line's not working. The other thing that's not working for Clemson, again, think about how many receivers they've sent to the NFL over the last 5 years. I mean, it's one stud after the next, after the next. Receivers aren't getting open this year. Clemson's not scoring points. This is not fraudulent in terms of the offense. The defense is loaded. Absolutely loaded. Now, BC's got the backup QB in Grossell. And let's just say that it's a work in progress in terms of the downfield passing right now. So I'm not convinced BC is going to put up points in bunches. Last week on the show, I did a big game breakdown talking about I like the under in the NC State Clemson game, and that was fine through the first overtime. The second overtime didn't get there. Once again this week, the only way I can look at this game is under the total. Clemson, as strong an under team as you'll find in college football right now. And I expect this to be another relatively low-scoring affair.
Yeah, I was going to say a little bonus big game breakdown there, college football style. And like you said, Teddy, all four would easily have gone under at Clemson games this year, if not for that last one. And even with double OT, it still only went over about a point. So that tells you what you need to know there. And Clemson didn't even score the point spread. They've only scored more than the point spread in one of the games, and that was that game. Otherwise, they don't, because they don't even score the point spread in the first three games. So no bye week. You just think they're going to flip a switch and become great offensively. So, they're a real questionable team right now. So appreciate that bonus big game breakdown. Once again, you gave me the Broncos and a little look at the under in the BC Clemson game. Hey, let's stick with college football and bring in a college football expert from WagerTalk.com. And I mean it. He's number one this 2020 and 21 in FBS profits in college football. WagerTalk best over 60% return on investment units won. That's Tony Mejia. And Tony's also going to be on with Rob Veno at 4 p.m. Eastern this afternoon on Friday. Appreciate you filling in for me, Tony, the last few weeks here on that Friday afternoon show with Dave Koken and Joe Ranieri. And we're going to talk first, so let's look at a Friday night football game before we get to the big one Saturday, Ole Miss, Alabama in a moment. But what's your take on this Big Ten battle tonight between Iowa and Maryland? Is Iowa really a top 5 team? I thought they'd be better this year, or not better. I thought they'd be good. They were good last year, 32-16. They outscored their opponents. They went 6-2, just like Indiana, who everybody was talking about last year. They smoked Indiana out of the gate. But are they for real? I think this Maryland team flying a little bit under the radar. What's your thought on this Friday night one, Iowa at Maryland?
Hey, Steve. Hey, Teddy. I think everybody's puzzled by this game. And I think we don't want to give Iowa any credit because if you've watched their games, they're beating teams by scoring defensive touchdowns, and their offense has been absolutely unimpressive. Just to illustrate where we're at going into this game, Talia Tagovailoa has passed for a Big Ten best 1,340 yards. Iowa has 1,172 yards as a total all season. And their quarterback, Spencer Petras, is a game manager. Everybody who watches him knows that. Their running game has really struggled. Normally, the strength of Iowa is always the offensive line. They're really young this year. They're hoping to have Kyler Schott back, one of their key interior linemen. He was injured in a hay baling accident, which I guess can only happen in Iowa, but should play more today. One of their other guards, Justin Britt, probably coming back from a knee sprain. He's expected to play more in this game. So they'll have more depth, which is key. But, I think everybody did a double take on that Colorado State game because they only averaged they picked up 54 yards on 32 attempts against the Colorado State Rams, who lost to Vanderbilt at home. So that should offer anybody pause. It's trying to lay points on the road with Iowa. That being said, Iowa's 17-1 as a road favorite since 2015. And look, Maryland is a team that I don't think odds makers have gotten any handle on over the last few seasons. Potentially that's a Mike Locksley bias, but he's been able to recruit. He got Tagovailoa there from Alabama. But just to put a handful of these results over the last couple of years with the Maryland Terrapins and coached under Locksley, they were a 1-point favorite against Syracuse, which was a ranked Syracuse squad at that point, 163-20. Next week out, they were a ranked underdog at Temple, and they lost. Then against Penn State, they were getting only 6, lost 59-0. Last year, it was a Penn State win that they actually pulled off 35-19, getting 27 points. That was on the heels of getting 20.5 against the Gophers, which they won in overtime. And I remember that because Tagovailoa couldn't have looked worse the week prior, and everybody said, "Oh, this guy's not at all like his brother." He looked completely lost the week prior to that, and then he really righted the ship immediately. So, I think this is a team that, the books don't really have a handle on, and Iowa is a team that they want to fade as a public home favorite. Road favorite. So, I have my leans on this game, but as far as the number goes, very interesting to see where they landed.
Well, what's your lean on the game? Because I got to ask you a question based on your lean.
Well, my lean on the game is Maryland because it looks like a trap line, the 3.5. So I take the points, and I like the under because I think all we're going to see from Tagovailoa is trying to keep possessions alive against a dangerous defense that's been the backbone of the Iowa attack this year. They beat Iowa State defensively. They beat Indiana defensively with pick sixes and scoop and score fumble returns. So you want to be conservative on that end if you're Maryland, particularly at home, and you think you can stay in the game. And as far as Iowa goes, that offense, I don't think is going to be solved overnight. Maryland's been decent on the defensive end. They really haven't been tested much, but did what they needed to do against the one team that could hurt them in West Virginia and winning that game early. So my leans are the under 47.5 and Maryland plus the points.
All right. So now I can make a case for Iowa to try to get you.
Okay.
Yeah. But so this is, I guess Iowa, I would call Iowa the least sexy team in the country. They never have an offense that works. They never win Big Ten titles. They just are one of these nondescript college football teams that you look at the end of the year, and every year, you go back the last 10 years, the worst point spread record Iowa's had is 6-7 at ATS. Kirk Ferentz every year. I think over a 10-year span, again, 58% point spread team, which is pretty good over a 10-year span.
Sure.
When we look at Iowa, certainly defensively, they don't have to put up yards. They don't have to put up points. The defense is good enough. My question is Iowa's defense good enough to control this game?
They are, but it is going to be up to Tagovailoa to get his playmakers the ball, because that'll be the opportunity that Maryland has in this game over the course of 4 quarters. Dante Demas and Raheem Jarrett are 2 of the better receiving options in the ACC, like legitimately. And Tayon Fleet Davis has looked the part as a running back. So what can they do? What Iowa State wasn't able to at home against these Hawkeyes? What Indiana, I think, was lacked chemistry to do so early on in the season with Penix just coming back from the ACL? At home on a Friday night? Yeah, potentially they can. But, Talia has to limit turnovers. He's been tremendous. 10 touchdowns, 1 pick, 75% completion percentage. But, yeah, he did it against West Virginia, and then the other teams have not been impressive. Howard, Illinois, Kent State. So, he's got to turn it back on, and I was certainly going to ramp up the pressure, which is why I really do think they'll keep things as conservative as possible early, let him get his feet wet.
Once again, that game's at 8 o'clock Eastern tonight, national TV, Friday night under the lights. You've got a pair of 4-0 straight-up Big Ten teams and teams that have gone 7-1 under combined. Maryland has 1 over, and that was that Howard game. So they're 7-0 under in all of their Division 1A games this season. That's at 8 o'clock Eastern tonight on Friday. Let's get to a big game on Saturday, Tony Mejia. And this is a game I actually break down in depth also, my college football top 25 video, which is on WagerTalk TV for this weekend. And that, of course, is Mississippi, Alabama. There's 4 top 25 matchups I did in that video. This is one of them. And really interested to get your takes on this one. Mississippi played them tough last year. They're obviously potent offensively once again. The big question mark for me is, have they really improved offensively? The numbers show it so far, but obviously This is a huge step up in class against Alabama. Bama, meanwhile, lost half of their offense in the first round of the NFL draft, but they just reload every year, as we know. They've been pretty strong. But that Florida game is the other big question mark I have. I don't know what to make of that, Tony. They had the big lead 21-3, and then they kind of let Florida back in. Was that just taking their foot off the gas, or is maybe Bama a little weaker this year? What's your thought on this big one, 3:30 Eastern, Saturday afternoon, Ole Miss at Alabama?
Yeah, Steve, I don't think it was taking their foot off the gas just because I watched the game, and there was panic setting in that second half. They were held to 10 points over the final 3 quarters of that game, and that's where you run into concerns with Bryce Young and an offense that really hasn't proven anything. John Mechie's a great playmaker, but he really benefited from the fact that they had Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle last year, because he could have been that number 3 guy. Now he's the number 1, and he's certainly explosive. But these are all guys moving up to a couple notches, and the quarterback isn't a veteran like Mac Jones. So can they compete with an offense that put up 48 points in Oxford last season and returns everybody except the tight end, Kenny Yeboah, who's with the Jets now, but everybody that had big games in that game against the Tide, Matt Corral, Snoop Connor, Jerry and Ely, all back. And you have a playmaker, a play caller in Lane Kiffin, who's had an extra week to prepare, knows exactly what Nick Saban and the Alabama defense wants to throw at him. And his main concern is going to be, can he establish tempo on the road against the best defense his team has seen all year, and including last year, because this Alabama defense is better than last season's. So that's where the total gets scary. 110 points last year, 111 points. And now you're asking me for 79, and 79 is huge, because if Alabama is able to slow down Ole Miss even a little bit, that's way too much. So, but at the same time, can Ole Miss hang around the way they did? The game last season was tied with 11 minutes left. It was a 1-possession game with a minute to go. So Ole Miss played with them the entire time, and I think that was no fluke.
So Tony Mejia, college football number 1 in FBS profits over at WagerTalk.com over the last 2 years. A better than 60% ROI, better than 56% win percentage. He's doing very well with his totals, his 4 stars in particular, 6-0 run on the 4-star plays, and the NFL 9-2 with the 4-star selections. Let's shift our focus to the NFL right here and talk about the Chiefs versus the Eagles, Kansas City. Now, depending on what line you want to look at, they're either 1-12-1 or 2-12 against the spread in their last 14 ball games, burning money for their backer. Is this the weeks that the Chiefs finally get a point spread cover?
My favorite quote this week was Andy Reid saying that the only reason they lost to the Ravens and Chargers is he wanted to get win number 100 with Kansas City in Philadelphia. So it was all by design. But this is a game where you're looking at what Philadelphia can potentially do, and they could steal this outright if they rebound from like a really puzzling loss to Dallas on Monday night, and just they completely abandoned the run game. Their running backs got 3 carries. They ran no plays with motion, Tony Sirianni and company. And Miles Sanders is averaging 8.9 yards per rush on first down, leading the NFL. Kansas City ranks 31st in stopping the run. They're giving up 160 yards per game, 5.4 yards per carry. So, going in, you expect that Philadelphia is going to be able to run the ball, but can they stop the run? Because that was, I think, the key for Dallas to establish themselves the way they did. A normally stout Philadelphia defensive line that gets pressure, that stops the run well, had no answers for Dak Prescott in that Cowboys O-line. And Kansas City should get more depth this week. We're going to find out today, I guess, if Orlando Brown Jr. is going to play. He's been pretty good for them since coming over. Duvernay Tardif is potentially back. And that was why they lost the Super Bowl, in my opinion, because their offensive line depth was in shambles. So do we get to see the Kansas City Chiefs that we fully expect? They haven't lost 3 in a row since 2017, and that's what the objective is, to avoid that, and for backers to cover a 7-point spread based on what I've seen.
So, Tony, I mean, do you think it's safe to play this game on the point spread, or should we try to get it down to that straight-up win situation on a 6 or 7 point teaser with Kansas City? And as Teddy said, they've been a point spread disaster, even though they've won a lot of those games straight up. So it really has been inflated lines. They've been a team I've mentioned several times on my Fade the Public video. They're one of the more public plays again this week. And it's more of a play against Philly. I think the public plays against teams more, I've noticed, than they play on teams, or they just don't play those teams, basically. That's where we get lopsided action. But, I mean, how would you approach this? I mean, do you want to play the point spread, or is a teaser a better option?
I mean, a teaser is a better option. You got to find other games that you like with it. But if you're going to lay the points, you're hoping that the Chiefs turning the ball over 6 times over their last 13 possessions is a blip that they're able to overcome. And you're counting on Philadelphia's 35 penalties, on pace for the most in NFL history, is a trend that continues. And certainly the Eagles have looked extremely sloppy. I'm always a big proponent of looking at what's going on the offensive lines. Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson, both on the injury report this week, they will play, but they lost the other tackle, Jordan Mailata, during the Monday night game. Now you have Andre Dillard starting, and he got beat out for the job earlier this preseason. So, if Chris Jones and Frank Clark expected to play are there to generate pressure for the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have a lead late in that game, do I trust Jalen Hurts to get even the back door based on what I saw on Monday night and what I've seen from him in terms of accuracy, in terms of how teams get after him when they know that he has to throw? No, I don't. So my lean is definitely laying the points.
Tony Mejia, great stuff in your NFL and college football breakdowns. What do you have to promote for this coming weekend?
Well, hoping to get on track in NFL. It's been kind of wishy-washy. I do have a good run going in college football, 4%, and hope to hit a 5%. I'm not sure if a game will get there, but I'll have a ton of games up. I'm a big volume guy with both college football and the NFL, just because you have a full week to prepare, and then you can make determinations on what you like with the line and whether the numbers are where you want them at or whether you've missed out on them. But yeah, tons of plays there. And then MLB, up until yesterday, I had a really good run going. So we will look to ramp up with the baseball playoffs upon us.
Tony Mejia, WagerTalk.com. And once again, you can check Tony out again with Rob Veno, who is on today as well, at 4 o'clock Eastern right here on Wager Talk TV live for the college football show with Dave Koken and Joe Ranieri. 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific live right here on Wager Talk TV. And don't forget, all these shows are archived day and night, 24/7 here on this channel as well. And speaking of which, if you haven't subscribed to Wager Talk TV, please click subscribe. It helps us out. It helps us get great guests on these shows and keep the content free. Click the bell if you want instant alerts. If you want to take it a step further, click that bell and you find out when shows are up, especially my Fade the Public NFL video, which will be up later tonight on Friday or Saturday morning, my top 25 college football video. If you want instant alerts when Teddy's opening line report is ready on Mondays, you want to click that bell when you subscribe. Give the videos a thumbs up. Once again, it helps us keep this content free and get great guests on a daily basis. 2 thumbs up if you can figure out a way to do it. Teddy's mastered that, I know. And also comment below. Hey, the comments help our rankings as well. It helps us get guests, and I love the comments. I read each and every one of them. I reply back as well. I honestly believe we have the sharpest and smartest sports wagering viewers on the internet here on Wager Talk TV and Wager Talk Today. Great guest today. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Rob Veno, Tony Mejia, once again, will be on at 4 o'clock Eastern. Don't forget, check out the videos all weekend long here on Wager Talk TV. And Teddy, I'm going to let you close it out here. I'll be back with you Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next week, filling in for the Prez, who is on assignment as we speak. Don't forget that half-price special for October is available right now for both Teddy and myself on our pages at WagerTalk.com. 5 full college and pro football weekends, a full month of baseball playoffs, and also the NBA Teddy and I cover just around the corner. Teddy, thanks for having me today. Have a great weekend. Close us out, my man.
Sure. And of course, that's going to wrap it for the week here at Wager Talk Today. We'll do it again next week, every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon for you on the East Coast. All that said, kick some ass this weekend. Enjoy the games, and good luck.
Why is our 269 October All Access Special one of our best deals ever? Let us count the ways. 5 college football Saturdays, 5 NFL Sundays, full month of MLB playoffs, NHL starts October 12th, NBA season starts October 19th, plus any other sport your favorite handicap releases, all for under $9 a day. As an added bonus, sign up early and get the rest of September included for free.